Hey, what's up? It's Kevin Rogers. Welcome to Copy Chief Radio, brought to you by copychief.com. See how that works? Let's get into it. Hey, it's Kev here. How's it going? In today's episode, I'm going to share with you some great conversations I had with my members of Copy Chief. Every Friday, every other Friday, actually, we do a thing called the Chief Chat. You may have seen emails about this. You are welcome to join us anytime. Super fun. We spend about an hour diving deep into what's happening now in the world of writing and copywriting and marketing. And we, often do critiques. We look at live campaigns and break them apart. It's really instructive, and we have a lot of fun too. And I wanted to share with you a couple of highlights from a recent Chief Chat. One where Jimmy Parent, who's a really hot up-and-coming copywriter, he works with Agora Financial and some private clients, wrote some bullets for a competition we do about every month in Copy Chief called Bullet the Podcast. That's where all the writers listen to an episode of this podcast and they write bullets about what they hear in the episode. And it's a great way for them to sort of obviously practice their craft and get an idea of how they stack up against other copywriters. It's a friendly competition and everybody's, cool and supportive. And then I go through and I pick a winner and I use their bullets to promote the episode, and I promote them in the process. And I also give them critiques of their bullets. So you can see a theme here. If you're not a member of Copy Chief, you can see that what we do a lot of is supporting each other and reviewing each other's stuff and hopefully helping everybody just get better. That's what we're all about. And so Jimmy Parent did a cool thing when he entered this competition. He started recording his process for writing bullets because he has a very particular process that solved the problem of how to create formulas and get the real juicy tidbits out of the information to make cool bullets. And he titled the video series, How to Win a Bullet Writing Contest. And I had no idea he was doing this. And it turns out he did win the contest. And it worked out nice, but we had a laugh about what he would have had to do if he didn't win. Would have been a little embarrassing to have that in the title of the videos. So that's super instructive. Jimmy and I talked through some of his bullets, and he shows you his process. So if you understand the power of copywriting bullets, then you're really going to love hearing the conversation between Jimmy and I. My friend Mike Lukas, who I've known for 30 years, we used to tour as stand-up comics together. Mike has now been working with me inside of Copy Chief for about a year now, helping me write better emails. He proofs my stuff and we brainstorm ideas all the time. He's also a hilarious guy and we do lots of fun videos and things together. And Mike came on to talk about how to take two unfunny things and combine them to make some funny. And you'll hear us work through that with everybody who's live on the call. Kind of a webinar improv session. Very cool, and I think you'll find it instructive. And then to start, you're going to hear me talk about my very first copywriting gig a few years back and how that all went down and what I learned from it. And if you're anywhere in your freelancing career where you're tired of either the dips, the financial swings, the feast or famine cycles, or you're still looking to get your very first client, I know this will be really helpful for you. So dive in, enjoy, and please let me know what you think. I'd love to share more of the stuff we do inside of Copy Chief with you if you're not a member, because number one, it'll help compel you to become a member, which is the best way I can help everybody get better. And second of all, it's a great way for us to share some really good content that we're creating anyway. So let us know how you like this. And of course, I'll continue recording interviews with the highest level players in the industry and doing some solo shows as well. All right, so dig it and let us know what you think. Show your work and teach what you're doing and share your success. That is all I did in my freelance career to get ahead. And I didn't have a plan for it. There wasn't as many places to outlets as there are today for it. I just had a simple little blog and an ugly looking little WordPress site. And I had a desire to share what I was learning. And that has made all the difference in my career. And by the way, this is kind of interesting. 2008, so my goodness, 11 years ago, I created my first report. We still use this term, by the way, behind the copy. And when I was still kind of early in my career, this is actually at least 2-3 years in, just to prove that when you don't have a community, and even if you do, look, freelancing is all about, once you get momentum, it's about keeping momentum and surviving the dips. There are always dips in every business. And I found myself in a dip. And I think a lot of it was a mental dip, because this is right when I went officially full-time into freelancing, right? It was fortuitous for me. I had a lot to overcome when I first started freelancing financially. I was making like $85 a year at my current job, which ain't nothing. I kind of envy people who are like, if I can get by on 20, 30, I'm like, awesome. Like, just go crazy. Like, you just, if you can't make that, you're in the wrong biz. And we had our first kid. We actually just had our second kid, mortgaged the whole bit. So I was already acting like somebody, and I had to replace that income with freelancing, which I desperately wanted to do. So my job, the company I was working with, were slowly kind of swirling, and they needed me less and wanted me to work less hours because they could afford me less, at the same time that my freelance business was ramping up. What happened was I hit a dip, and right when I went full time, like no more income from the other job, it felt like every lead I had in the world just disappeared. And I started reaching out to people and saying, hey, if you know anybody looking, I'm available, and blah, 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 and like proposing these special offers. Well, a colleague of mine at the time, and this is why it's so important to have a community, I knew him from another board called the Copywriting Board, which I modeled Copy Chief after, minus the trolls. Said to me, he goes, don't you have the #1 sales letter on ClickBank right now? I go, yeah. He's like, well, rather than offering special prices and stuff like that, he goes, like, everybody wants to know how to write a #1 ClickBank sales letter. He goes, why don't you teach what you did in that letter and let it be known that you've had this success? And I bet that will generate more quality leads from you than price. And I was like, wow, man, it's so obvious, right? And I put this together like in a day. And so what I did was I just went through the entire letter, and I actually stole this from the only course I had studied on copywriting at that point was the AWAI. Back then it was called Institute. And they found out legally, you're not allowed to call yourself an institute unless you actually become one. And so anyway, this is like the Hall of Fame. And I love this book because John Ford went through this book, and he, like great control sales letters. And he just sort of annotated in the margins, like what's going on in the copy. And I said, oh, well, that's what I'll do with my sales letter. This #1 ClickBank sales letter that everybody's so happy to promote, making a ton of money with. And I'm sitting here wondering if I'm going to make mortgage. And so that's what I did. I figured out how to annotate in a PDF. And here was the great thing about doing this. It taught me more about my own process than I had previously known. I couldn't believe how many things I could point out on a page that were, I thought, affecting the success of the sales letter, right? I was like, wow, like by teaching, I'm learning a lot about how I do this and how it might be done effectively by others. And so this was sort of my first ever teaching. And that's why I always say to freelancers, ABT, always be teaching. And so I printed these, I made them a download. And the other shocking thing that happened was, again, I was feeling like still a newbie, and I was in this community. And when I released the report, of course, I was a little nervous about it, thinking, like I was saying earlier, people are going to call me out and like, bro, this is what you don't even know what you're talking about. None of that happened. What happened instead was people I thought were miles ahead of me down this copywriting road were writing to me going, dude, I just read your whole report and like, man, it's awesome. Like, you really taught me a lot. And I'm like, what? What? And so that's exactly what Jimmy's instinct is. He's doing the same thing, not with a plan. This, I got to admit, I had a little bit of a plan because a dude had said to me very wisely, he's like, advertise your success, man. And that's essentially what Jimmy's doing too. We do it partly out of ego. We do it partly out of the desire just to teach and help other people learn. Yeah, ready, fire, aim, man. Bring us back, Jimmy, to the moment when it dawned on you that you should record this process.
It was what I wish someone else made. This is like the, what's the word? I don't know. Just all these different ideas of how to write bullets just jammed together, you know? And the struggle that I always had with bullets was, okay, we're supposed to do that which means process, which is, you know, cool. But if you don't know what the point is to your prospect, like, well, which means what? What do they care about? And then I discovered I could literally just go and find different complaints, things that people hate, you know, and like we've done the research thing, like just find out what sucks in their life. And I can take the fascination, you know, I mean, it's a pseudo fascination where I just go through and pull out the interesting things like, oh, that's really cool. That's counterintuitive, blah, blah, blah. And it's neat and it's curious on its own, but there's no benefit yet. It's just fascinating. And then I'd say, oh, you know what? I could just plug these two together and say, okay, now I have this basic problem solution type of thing. So I started doing it for the Bullet the podcast. And I said, wait a minute, what if I just recorded this? And then how can I make this really, really sexy by saying like how to win it? And then all of a sudden I was like instantly puckering and I'm like, I don't know if I could, you know, if I could do that, if I could say that. I'm not very cocky, you know, I'm not I'm just going to do it and just see what happens, you know? And like you said, if it failed, I'm like, how do I edit this?
Right.
Yeah. So I just recorded it and then just put it up and said, let's see what happens.
Awesome.
That was my mindset.
So I love the videos. And again, there's a separate thread for that, but let's dive into a couple of your bullets now, if we could, Jimmy.
Okay.
You can see if you go through and watch all the critiques for some of them. And again, like wherever you are at, man, is where you should be. And you just got to be doing the do. And that's how you gain skill. And so I just went through and told you what I was seeing. So there's 20 different videos you can watch to see what I saw in these bullets.
They're all good. I watched all of them.
Did you really? Wow.
They're incredible. Yeah.
And you can see, again, genuinely, because I'm literally just opening this up and I'm starting a video and you're hearing me in real time experience these bullets. And when I get to Jimmy's, I'm fawning and I'm getting all excited. And I'm like, woo. I think I did my genuine excited noise at one point, Jimmy. Woo! That's when you know you got me, when you hear me do that. Woo!
There's one of them where it made you laugh. And I'm like, how do I turn this into my ringtone? You've laughed. Who am I kidding? No one has a ringtone anymore. In a lot of great bullets, I always got to point out Valentina, man. Like Valentina, I just love her style. She's won this contest before. Yeah, she's killer. A lot of great bullets in here. But Jimmy, man, I guess what really stuck out about yours to me was you didn't lean on the tricks and the formulas. You baked the fascination into your copy, your text. The formulas always work, like think blankety blankety blank, wrong, blah, 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 blah. You know, but like I was saying before, it's like, what is your style? Is there another way to do that and have that same effect, but maybe just it comes across differently? So just reading your first one, Todd reveals how this hilarious axe murderer technique transforms anxiety-riddled freelancers into closing machines with Clint Eastwood levels of confidence. So just stopping there, man, I think I pointed this out too, that what's so important about bullets to me is you cannot overwhelm the reader. It's like our friend Paris Lampropoulos says, one concept per sentence. And if you get ahead of your reader's brain, and this is especially true with VSL's voiceovers, you're gone. They can't be 2 slides behind you trying to make sure they understood what you said, and now we're done. And that's why, you know, in face-to-face, you get that. You can see if they're slipping or they're not sure, but it's a one-sided conversation. So how much did you toy with this first one, Jimmy, to get all that information in without it ever feeling overwhelming? So when you watch the videos, you'll see that most of these are almost a paragraph or two at the very beginning. I'm a huge fan of cold edits, 24 hours. Yeah. And so I would go through and just clean it up. I would say it out loud. I'd be like, oh, that's clunky. What can I delete? What can I delete? What can I delete? You know, and I just started deleting stuff until it got down to like this core, you know, so that was after 3-4 days. And what I mean by that is like, I would spend 5 minutes. Like I did all the work on the front end. I would spend like 5 minutes, you know, every morning I would just go down and just kind of tinker with it until it got to this core. And then, you know, if in the videos I talk about who's my audience here, it's you. Yeah. You know, it's you. And then, well, who's your audience? It's copywriters. You know, so what matters to you and copywriters? Like, well, it needs to be lyrical was something that you talked about. So what I would do, this is something I didn't talk about in the videos, I would sing these out. I'd be like, right. and I said like, well, who does Kevin like? I know he keeps talking about the Stones. So like, I just found some Stones songs on YouTube and like, I just tried to like make it dun, 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 you know, and I play an instrument, I play guitar. So it wasn't hard for me to kind of make these melodic.
Right.
You know, so I sung it out and then I was like, oh, where could I, like some song lyrics, they have that like powerful word just right at that point. Right. It's like, what could I put there? And then I added in counterintuitive elements like hilarious. What I originally had was super effective axe murderer technique, which is predictable. That is a predictable bullet. But hilarious is like, what? Like that's counterintuitive. That it doesn't belong there, and it makes you so curious. Like, how does this make sense?
I think at first I was almost like, is that a superfluous word? And then I was like, no, it's a critical word. For what you said, Carlton calls it the incongruous juxtaposition.
Yes.
Of two things, a hilarious axe murder, you know, and so I love that that's in the first bullet. It shows that none of this we're going to take it so seriously. There's a funness to your writing, you know, that to me, those are the elements that we all should strive for, where it's like, if you're writing about something super serious, fine. But that's what I think about. Comedians are so effective at making you think hard, but laugh even despite your wishes to laugh sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. I think of like Jim Jeffries in comics like that. You're like cringing, but you cannot help but laugh because it's so well crafted. George Carlin was great at that. Yeah, so thank you for sharing all this, Jimmy. One other thing you want to point out before we go that people shouldn't overlook and that you didn't reveal in those videos?
The biggest thing is having a counterintuitive element. Every single one has something counterintuitive in it. Some where it doesn't make sense. Where you know, it's like, okay, this is something that I want. Like, for example, the Gillick switch. I had to look that up. So I did a little research. I went onto Google and I was like, well, who figured out this whole identity shifting thing? And there's this lady, I think her name's Dr. Karen Gillick, and she's the one who talked about it first. And so I just said, well, there's my mechanism named the Gillick switch. So I went even beyond the podcast.
You know, created a unique mechanism of your own.
I did. And then the counterintuitive element, everyone, like, what is the status quo? And how can I spit in the face of the status quo? Like, skip the hand copying practice and do this 20-second breakthrough instead.
Yeah, man. It gets me. Woo! That's what I say, Jimmy. Fantastic, brother. And, you know, what I think what improves here, and this is why I love that you're such a cool, approachable, humble guy, is that it's the work, bro. That's what makes the difference. You just find a process that you trust and develop your own processes and be willing to take the time and do the work, and the results will come. Almost like, I don't say anybody could be a world-class copywriter, but I tell you what, a lot of people have missed becoming successful copywriters just by either not being willing to do the work or not knowing which work to do. And that's what you showed us in these videos, and I appreciate it, man.
Well, and also the process. I mean, remember when you were at the beginning, every time you say you got the emails, you almost recreated yourself and how you did emails. You're like, I never had a process before, so I'm starting from scratch again. I'm looking online. What's the best way to write an email? And I caught myself doing that. What's the best way to write bullets? I'm like, I've done this before.
Yeah.
You know, so let's make a process. So now I have a process for my sales letters, for my emails. So what used to take me, days to write emails, I can now get done in about 15 minutes. You know, what used to take me 2 months to write a sales letter, I can now get done in about 20 hours total, because I have a process that's predictable. So create your process and follow the freaking process. Just trust it. and tweak it from there. Quit trying to recreate from scratch, but evolve it as you do it, not create it and then try and do it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it does.
That's the gist of it.
And teach yourself as you're learning. And
yes.
Like you did here. How much more do you understand about your own process after doing this, right?
Oh, I learned so many cool tricks. I shortened my bullet process, at least by half. Like doing the fascinations first. What I used to do is go and find the complaints first and then figure out what the market's thinking and then listen or read the product as the market. It just doesn't work, man. Yeah. It just doesn't. Instead, I'm just gonna go through the product or listen to it as myself and just say what's interesting to me, and then go listen to the market. So I do that now.
Yeah, and like we're creating checklists for ourselves. Same thing I did in this thing is like that was the other takeaway I had from this was I realized, oh man, I actually now have a checklist for me to use when I go through copy to make sure it's doing. Once my draft is done, that's where I know how to hone in on the improvements I need to make. So awesome, Jimmy. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
You got it, man.
You know what's even better than listening to a conversation with people who are leading the industry in marketing and copywriting? Having conversations with them and being surrounded by like all the best ones, all the coolest people. It happens once a year at Copy Chief Live. In 2019, the dates are October 28, 29, and then the special Freelancers Only Day on October 30th. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. Copychief.live, copychief.live. Come check out the speaker lineup and how you can get in on $500,000 in new contracts between clients and copywriters at this event. Copychief.live. Right on. With that, let's talk to our buddy Mike Lukas. You guys know Mike. He's in himself, not officially a BA, because Mike is not technically a copywriter. Mike is very much a freelancer. Mike and I used to do comedy together. We still kind of do comedy together. He's one of my best friends in the world, a guy I love hanging with and talking to.
Hey, everybody.
I loved your article. You've been writing. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you're watching the Going Pro section in the Freelancers Only. Mike's been posting like one a week. You and I were talking about this, Mike. We've technically, legitimately been freelancing for like 30 years, the both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, I was a comic for 24 years, a writer now for another 6 years.
Earning our money, gig by gig.
We call it 1099. And that's the tax form, the 1099ers. So
you ever find some of your old calendars from the early days?
Oh,
like, we just moved, so
brutal.
The only time I see them, and I'm like, wow, like seeing those bookers' names again, and like, oh, $150 for a weekend at the Holiday Inn in Poughkeepsie,
And then you go to Tampa for $50, and then you go up to Tennessee for another $75 a week after that. Like, wow, that month I'm going to make a couple $100.
Right. Yeah, not calculating in fuel, and then just like, why am I keep arriving to the gig literally on fumes? Like, I hope there's somebody in there to feed me because it's 2 PM. I can't get into the hotel yet.
And we just were like, you just couldn't believe you're getting paid at all. It's like, oh my God, they're
proving the model. It was a miracle. Crime of the century, right?
Right. So this article here, I appreciate you pointed out. I was talking about before it, I was kind of broke it down and talking about combining worlds. And that's what I was like hoping to talk to you a little bit about real quick right here. I was thinking that this is something that Del Close, the great improviser. Oh, hold on a second. Let me pick that up.
Tell you who that is, because that's a pretty cool name to drop, and not a super famous one.
No, he's basically invented Second City. He was one of the Compass players coming in from St. Louis, and they went up to Chicago, and then he and a bunch of other famous names created Second City, the theater. And then eventually he split out of Second City after they sold it. And then he went over and started with Sharna Halpern, who helped him get out of his heroin addiction, the Improv Olympic, which is now known as the I.O. So I studied at both of those up in Chicago.
Yeah, so you and this is Del Close, mentor to John Belushi.
Yeah, he taught everybody. Yeah, all the old school people, all the anyone that was in the Chicago Second City scene that went on to be SNL, Bill Murray, all those guys. Like Del Close is their guy. He's like the one that he invented. Yes, and he's the one that like basically really brought that out. And one of the things he taught us was about finding the game. And that's what I was hoping to just talk about here for just real quick. But the way he taught us was...
Sorry, I got to drop more names. He's like, Amy Poehler and them started UCB. Yeah. Mike and I used to do shows with the original UCB with Matt Besser
right.
and Amy Poehler and Adam McKay, who now is a world-class film director. So, yeah.
How was that? Boy, that was a scene back then, wasn't it?
Dude, it was unreal. And I had long hair. If you've seen the pictures of me, I had this rock thing, and Mike was bald even then.
I had a wig for a week. I got a toupee for 1 week.
The first day I ever met you, you had tried to shave part of your head under the theory that if you didn't have a widow's peak, your hair would look normal.
Oh, it's times, buddy.
And obviously that backfired. And so the day I met you, you were wearing a headband across the top of your head. And I'm like, that's an interesting choice. That's very avant-garde. And then you had hair behind that.
And then it puffed out.
And then we had a snowball fight in the parking lot. It was
like if Mel Gibson and Aunt Jemima had a baby. It'd be me, like with that scarf and big, long lethal weapon hair. But so his class was great because he was a dick, man. Like Del Close was just a real strict teacher. And if you weren't up to par, he would say stuff like, he would freeze everybody. Is that scene you did just there? Was that something they would put on television right now? And they were like, oh, no. I was like, so you're still telling me that what you wouldn't even put on television, you would put on my stage right here. Wow. All right, carry on. And then everyone would be like, oh, and then it would just up your game, and he'd call people out and everything. But one thing he taught us is that when you want to find humor in something, you want the scene to be going on. Of course, a yes and is a very famous thing, which is you agree with whatever's going on, but then you heighten it a little bit. And then if each person does that in the scene, it grows. It creates something that's bigger than what you could create by yourself in a single thought process, like say on a typewriter, if you're still writing that way like I am. And they talked about worlds. He said, you got to figure out what the worlds are that you're talking about. And like a world, what I would use as an example, I in this article, I said the two worlds, like say, for instance, the world of frogs and the world of banks. So individually, those aren't really that funny. A frog world is not that funny. It's just frogs. You just think of frogs. You think of the, riddips. You think of the tongues and the flies and stuff like that. And then in the world of banks, you think of money and you stand in line and all that kind of stuff. So neither of those very funny. But then what he would say is when you have to find the game of the scene, and you do that by combining those worlds. You bring them together and you try to figure out how to fit both worlds in a new world together. Like one of the examples I used in my article here to show, I said that picture a scene where now you have an actual real bank and there's a frog standing in line with the little business suit on, and he's holding his his stuff, and then he said, I'd like to deposit these flies into my checking, please. And so like right there, that's just it's a right. I'm laughing because I'm just picturing his little hat and his.
You know what it made me think of though? Like what's the famous frog? The hello, my baby. Hello. It's just always so funny because he's got the cane and the top hat, and
so in that joke, they're combining the worlds of the frog, but they're combining
vaudeville or whatever.
Vaudeville, like this Broadway vaudeville showman kind of thing. And so,
and like the other thing that used to always kill me in cartoons was the bank. The guy leading the heist crew was always a baby with a beard and a cigar. All right, humps, we gotta get out.
Sure, boss. Whatever you say, boss. Baby boss is me.
He did
it right then. I love that.
Why was it a baby with a beard? But we didn't question it. It was just funny. So all right, yes, and let's keep going. This is great.
They always had that little bonnet on. There always has to be that bonnet. It kind of goes around. A little tied right here.
That must have been like a hack thing in the cartoon writers where when they had nothing, they'd come in and go, okay, hear me out. It's a bank robber, but it's a baby.
Don't do baby boss. Don't do baby boss. We did baby boss 3 times last month, Kev. Come on.
No, but this has a new twist. Twist. This
I'll hear you out. What is it?
He actually smokes a rattler, you see.
Nice. It's in. Oh, hell. Yeah, and so what I thought would be fun to do real quick, I don't know if we still have time, but I thought it would be funny to see if anyone has any frog and bank combination ideas, including yourself, that they could type out in the chats.
Oh, we're going to do some improv. All right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of awkward to type it out, but like just like the world of banking and the world of frogs come together. And the reason why, and while you're doing that, I'll just say this, because a lot of people are not necessarily funny people. Everyone in Copy Chief seems to have a real good sense of humor, but some are acting like they don't have one at all. And so what I'm trying to say is when you think funny, when you're thinking funny, it's when you bring worlds together and you find the game and you begin to play that game by bringing those things together. That's like a muscle that you're working on. And when you begin to understand that when you think funny, when you combine worlds, when you bring those together and you just give examples of that, that's a muscle that's working on trying to just have a more humorous look.
Yeah, they're already happening.
They're
not waiting for us, Mike, to give them permission. They're already in the funny. I knew Alex would be first.
I knew it, man. Yeah. These guys are.
Ribbit or debit your account.
Ribbit or debit your account.
All right, let me think
of it. The bank and get frog legs as a free gift. There you go. Exactly.
That's funny, right? Oh yeah, what are frogs like?
Take out a mortgage on a new pond, right? I know as a writer, what you do is you sit in a room with a bunch of other writers, and then you begin combining worlds together, like we're doing right now. And so we'll take, out of all these things, every one of them, and some of them will inspire other people to combine other worlds. And you go, oh, I didn't even think about the hedge fund. And so then you'll begin to do that. And then you look at it later, and then you get all of it together, and then you take out the top 5 or whatever, and those are the funny ones. And then those are the ones that, as a group, you all kind of came up with them by banging those worlds together. So finding the game is what I would say is if you don't need to be a joke teller, right, to be funny or humorous. You just need to be part of finding the game. Like everyone, look at all this, everyone's participating in here. And if this was in a nightclub or a coffee house or whatever, and we all were like, each one of us would have a shot at the conversation.
Yeah.
How about this? How about that?
Oh, it's my favorite thing in the world. To just be in a room with people riffing. It's just the best thing.
I said, Copy Chief Live is like that. Oh, we had so much fun. We just, I hadn't laughed that hard.
You were hurting people. People had to remove themselves from your presence.
And I was sober during that one. Oh, God knows what happened if I start drinking.
So fun, dude. This is great. And so, practical, you can do this alone, right? You're sitting there writing. It's like Jimmy was saying before. What did Jimmy say about his bullets? Every one of them has an incongruity, an incongruous juxtaposition. And this is another way to, along those lines, how do you just combine 2 worlds? Also, when we think about big ideas, remember we have those 2 columns of like the product research and the things just floating around in our orbit. And we start to go, is there any way to connect these that's actually interesting? And what else is that like? And, I love it, dude. Great stuff.
And I've been posting a new article every week. I wish there was a way to make them scooch down a little bit so it's not just all me up there. But I know a good way to do that would be if other people submit some nice threads, they can jump right in. We'd love to see.
Well, you're gonna need your own section.
Oh, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about that.
Lucas Quarters. Awesome, Mike. Thanks, brother. It's always fun talking to you. Appreciate all you do, man. Mike Lukas, how cool is that? This is what life is, right? That's the other thing about just thinking about going into business, starting as a freelancer. What kind of people do you want around you, right? We get to control it, and we get to decide who we want to attract and who we want to keep in our lives. So don't ever forget that. This is our gig. It's our standard that people have to meet to work with us. Copy Chief Radio. Copy Chief Radio.